Hello everybody and welcome back as I take another fond look back at some of my favourite Neca predators from across the years, and today I'll be returning to the Predator 2 Lost Tribe line and I'll be taking a closer look at the Battle Armour Lost Predator. So I won't beat about the bush any longer, let's get straight into this review by looking at the packaging. If you've ever owned any of the other figures in this series or watched any of my other videos covering this line, you'll know what to expect. On the backing card we have an image in the top left hand corner of the City Hunter Predator mask in his profile, which looks really cool, and then in the background we kind of have this collage effect of sort of the heat signature and the targeting system the Predator uses. It's a bit of a mismatch, it's a bit incomprehensible to be honest, it's quite busy, but it is quite striking in terms of the colours they've used, and it helps make the figure in the packaging in that bubble display there really pop. And of course we have the Predator himself in the bottom right hand corner there on that paper insert, which also has the name and of course the Predator 2 logo. Now if we look at the back of the packaging, we can see the other figures that were released as part of this wave. We have the Snake Predator, which is pretty cool. I don't own that one, but it looks pretty fun with the alien head on a pike there. It looks pretty good. And we also have the heat signature Jungle Dutch as well, which is pretty interesting. So we also have a little bit of information there about this particular hunter, which is quite cool, and just a few vital stats, and that's basically it. There's not an awful lot of text on this packaging, but it's pretty attractive. You can put this on display or hang it on your wall and it's going to look pretty eye-catching. As I've mentioned in previous videos, because there are so many predators from Neca, there comes a point where you have to kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to add to the collection. So I tend to look for things that are quite distinctive and quite different, and I think this Ultimate Armour Predator really defines that really, because he does look so different to any other predators in the line up to this point. Obviously the emphasis is much more on the technological aspects of his armour, which look very cool and very bright and colourful with those fantastic inky blues and deep vivid reds. I don't actually have a reference photo for this Predator. I don't know that he actually does appear at the end of Predator 2 as is claimed, so I'm not quite sure where they got the reference for this particular Predator from, but I do really love the sculpting on him nevertheless. I think his mask is really cool and so much more detailed and has so much more things going on in it and so much more sculpting and etches and grooves in it than any other Predator. It just looks a lot more technologically advanced and it just looks a lot meaner. So I think they've done a really nice job with this, and once again the actual colours, the paint they've used is really striking. It almost has a metallic feel to it, but it's a very inky blue and it just looks very striking and very menacing at the same time. Now whilst the base body mould, when we look at the torso, the arms and the legs are all recycled from previous Predators, of course the paint apps are brand new, so we're seeing a brand new colour scheme and design being used here. This Predator has a lot more green, beige and even some red speckles or freckles here and there as well. But what's really interesting about this Predator is all the brand new pieces that Neca have sculpted for him, and he has all brand new armour. Doesn't matter whether it's his shoulder pads, his face mask, his plasma cannon, his backpack, his sword and sheath, and we'll look at that a little bit later, his gauntlets, his shin pads, even his side chaps and his skirt are all completely brand new. And of course they are magnificently sculpted with lots of detail in there, but also really beautifully painted with lots of different shading and washes going over this to create that sort of inky metallic wash, which just looks absolutely fantastic. It's really eye-catching, but it also looks authentic and real for the universe that it's being presented in as well. And for me personally, this is probably one of the best presented, one of the most detailed sculpts I've ever seen on any of the Predators. But as they say, all that glitters is not gold, and I think this is a good example of that because there are a few drawbacks to this Predator, one of them being the plasma cannon. He is on a ball joint, which is really cool. It has some new articulation here, but it doesn't stay in place. Mine just wants to pop out all the time, and that's really unfortunate, because otherwise the intention here to have extra articulation and allow a lot more posability with this cannon is really cool. And whilst we're talking about posability, let's look at the articulation. There is something approaching a ball joint, although it used to be a strict swivel on the top of the neck there that will allow the head to move from side to side, wobble left and right, and even nod up and down. So this is actually a dramatic improvement from what we've seen recently. There are ball joints in the shoulders that will allow the arms to lift up and out, and there is a pin swivel at the elbow, allowing that lower forearm to spin all the way around. Now whilst the arm should hinge to 90 degrees, it doesn't really quite work work with this very thick gauntlet, so really it kind of only raises up about, what, 10 degrees, 20 degrees tops. There's not really an awful lot in this at all, which is a shame. Now there is another ball joint, another pin swivel at the top of the wrist there, allowing that hand to rotate all the way around, and that will hinge forwards and backwards a good distance. There is a ball joint in the waist that will allow the figure to move from side to side, but also lean left and right a little bit as well. Now you will have to persevere with the leather skirt, but that's okay, and you can bend the figure forwards and backwards as well, albeit only fractionally. Now there are more ball joints in the hips that will allow the legs to kick out to the side, and you can spin the top of that thigh around to the side as well, but it will reveal a pretty ugly white ball joint there, so you might want to hide that. Now the legs will kick forwards, they'll kick backwards a good distance. There's a double joint at the knee there, so you can get that lower leg all the way back up there, and then finally there is another pin swivel, another ball joint at the bottom of the leg that will allow the foot to hinge from side to side and move forwards and backwards. In terms of accessories, he does have a few fun ones, including a brand new piece, which is of course his katana sword. This is really very cool. This is a first, I think, in the series. I don't think we saw any other Predators with swords up until this point. He also has a variant of the spinning blade disc. This obviously has open spikes on it. We would see this piece again later with the AVP Predators, although obviously painted very differently. And then we have his very specific, unique plasma cannon as well. Thankfully, he doesn't have any problem holding his accessories. As you can see, he can just firmly grip that spinning blade disc there. And again, you can see just how well painted this is, the detail, the wash going over the blades themselves. And this looks pretty menacing and quite striking. So this is really well done. Although those blades are quite fragile, be careful with them because there is a tendency for them to snap, so be warned. But his katana sword is definitely the coolest thing, I think, about this Predator. I really love this sword. I think it looks really striking. It's really great that the Predator has a sword. It's such a cool, imaginative addition to this line, and he just looks absolutely fantastic. Again, very well painted. I particularly like the red edge of the blade as well. I think that's really effective and really well done. And the other thing that's very cool about that is that he actually has a sheath on his back as well, which is built in, and of course the sword will just slide into that as well, which just looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, so before I wrap up for today, I did want to point out that this Predator has been re-released as an ultimate version in recent years. We can see the packaging here. This obviously is really much improved packaging. I love this box packaging and I love the artwork. It really brings this Predator to life. I think that looks absolutely tremendous. Likewise, the interior card art as well just looks fantastic. So a really nice upgrade, I would say. In terms of the extra bits and pieces, there's not actually an awful lot more that you get with the ultimate version, except that you do get some alternate heads, which is very cool, a loose version of the mask as well, and some alternate hands. But other than that, the basic accessories are the same, and I think the base mold of the Predator is more or less the same, although there might be some improved articulation in the upper chest area, and that's basically it. So obviously it's up to you in terms of whether you want to go for the upgrade or not, but I don't think this one's quite as significant as some of the others that we've seen in recent videos. Okay, with all of that being said then, my final thoughts, this is a pretty kick-ass Predator, I've got to say. I was really pleased to get him at the time, just because he looks so different from anything else that had been produced up until that point. And I still think he's a very striking Predator, even all these years later. I think his accessories are really cool, and I really love that sword. I love the colour, and I love the overall design, and the detail that's gone into this costume I think looks pretty badass. Now, there are drawbacks to this Predator. Obviously, he has the slightly older articulation schemes, so that's something to be aware of, and of course that plasma cannon does have that really unfortunate tendency to want to pop out. I had to use some white tack on mine to hold it in place, which is it does ruin the look somewhat, but other than that, a really cool design, a very cool Predator to add to your collection, especially if you're looking for something a little bit different and a little bit more nuanced, and just adds a little bit of extra colour. I think he's definitely the one for you. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.